Have you ever, when you're alone, felt as if there is a sudden hollowness? Sometimes it's not due to a lack of anything. We feel we have everything. We have activities, friends, money, even things that make us happy. Even in the middle of a crowd, we can suddenly feel detached from our surroundings and struck by an abrupt emptiness, a void that leaves us confused about how to fill it, or what to fill it with. We try to fill it with all sorts of things, yet it never feels like enough. We are acutely aware that this emptiness isn't just a mood swing. It comes, it goes, and we know for certain it will return. This void is not here simply because we lack gratitude or because of some moral failure we believe in. Instead, this emptiness is far deeper and full of riddles, like a shadow that somehow follows us everywhere, even when life looks perfectly fine. When we feel we have purpose, wealth, achievements, whatever it is, there remains an inexplicable empty space that is never truly filled. We keep trying to fill it. Some chase one achievement after another. Others build one relationship after the next. There are also those who escape into endless distractions. But the opposite happens. The harder we try to close that void, the more palpable it becomes, leaving us asking, what is this emptiness really? Why does it exist? Why can it never be filled or vanish? And what are we supposed to do with this feeling? The emptiness we experience, if explained from a psychobiological perspective, can be understood as a sort of affective residue that is left behind after a dopamine spike or after the process of hedonic adaptation settles. So, what remains is not a sense of fullness, but a hunger, systematically arranged. Look, every now and then, we must have wanted something badly. We are willing to save up for a long time just to get that object we desire, like the latest phone, that pair of shoes, favorite clothes, specific food, and many other things. Until finally, we manage to own it. Of course, from there comes an extraordinary sense of pleasure. There is excitement, there is a boost of spirit, and a feeling that the long effort we endured has finally paid off. But try to observe a few weeks later. Everything starts to feel ordinary. That new item slowly loses its appeal. The sensation is no longer as strong as when we first had it. We start glancing at something newer, something that looks more interesting, and that desire surfaces again. This pattern repeats again and again. This phenomenon does not happen because we are too materialistic or because we are always dissatisfied. It is precisely the natural mechanism of how the human mind works, our minds. In the realm of psychology, this pattern is known as hedonic adaptation. It means when we experience something very pleasurable, that feeling only lasts temporarily. In a relatively short time, our emotional state will return to the starting point. We adapt, then go back to feeling just okay. From here, the brain's motivational system is formed within our psyche, as if there is a repeating pattern, anticipation, then the chase, then achieving, after that, a decline, then emptiness, then searching for a new target, and spinning again and again. This concept was first introduced by Brickman and Campbell in 1971. They described it like someone continuing to run on a treadmill that moves endlessly, but never truly getting anywhere. We keep chasing new things in the hope they will bring happiness. But every time we reach them, that happiness vanishes faster than we imagined. So we go back to chasing the next target, and the cycle repeats without end. Many studies support this picture. One of them is the study regarding lottery winners and victims of major accidents. In the long run, their happiness levels do not differ significantly from the average person. In fact, some lottery winners feel more depressed after the initial euphoria fades. Conversely, individuals who suffered accidents resulting in paralysis can find emotional stability again after some time has passed. These findings show that humans are essentially very adaptive, both to pleasurable experiences and painful ones. The biological explanation further confirms this irony. One of the main actors in this process is dopamine, a chemical compound often called the happiness hormone. But that label is actually misleading. Dopamine is not a substance that brings happiness in the sense of peace or satisfaction. Dopamine is actually closer to hunger than to fullness. It works when we want something, not when we've gotten it. Its role is to activate the brain's motivational system, making us curious, interested, and driven to act. That is why dopamine levels actually rise before we achieve something, not after. When we imagine how happy we will be when we get that specific item or experience, the brain floods us with dopamine. We then become motivated, obsessed, and even feel urged to chase it immediately. We often think that we keep chasing something because we want to feel happy, but at the level of actual brain function, the exact opposite happens. We feel happy because we are in the process of chasing. That sense of wanting is what the dopamine system rewards. Dopamine itself doesn't care much about the result or the final achievement. Consequently, the moment we reach the destination, the system stops giving rewards. We feel as if something has vanished, even though we just obtained what we wanted. Numerous studies in neuroscience support this pattern. For instance, research on rat brains shows that when dopamine is inhibited, the rats have no interest in chasing food. Even when food is available, they lose the drive to move towards it. Conversely, when dopamine levels are increased, rats become extremely active and full of drive, even towards very small stimuli. This is what makes the emptiness feel like a shadow that keeps following us. Because this is the result of a biological system designed to keep pushing us forward without providing space to stop and truly feel enough. When we, quote-unquote, hunt for a phone, shoes, a job target, a PR at the gym, or even someone's attention, we feel arousal, then quickly return to flatline afterwards. The contrast between the peak and the ordinary state creates that distinct emptiness, like wanting something but not knowing what. Because this pattern repeats, the emptiness repeats. Perhaps all this time, we thought happiness was about getting, having, achieving, conquering. But what we experience shows the opposite. What our brain chases is the sensation of running, not the feeling of touching the finish line. Even when everything is in our grasp, we can still feel hollow, as if there is a subtle gap between expectation and reality, between peaking desire and the satisfaction that never arrives. We don't need to rush to blame ourselves or view this as a failure of self-control. What we are experiencing is a very common human experience. It is not a moral weakness or a sign that we are too materialistic. Just true, it is the emotional structure and brain function that keeps us in chase mode. If we don't realize this, we will be trapped blaming ourselves for something happening behind the scenes of our brains. We cannot exit this treadmill with simple advice like stop chasing, be more grateful, or just enjoy what you have. Because in reality, the system within us is designed to keep moving, running, and chasing. But perhaps what we can do is start seeing this cycle honestly, as it is, by understanding the mechanism behind this emptiness, biologically and psychologically. At least we don't immediately blame ourselves, and we can reinterpret the meaning of desire, achievement, and happiness. Hedonic adaptation and this dopamine system explain why our internal satisfaction fades so easily. But actually, there is another factor involved. This other factor comes from outside ourselves, making the cycle run faster and deeper. Something some of us might already know and realize, but rarely truly think about why it is the true culprit. The world we live in today floods us with false clues about who we should be, what we should own, and how we should feel happy. We are no longer merely chasing real needs, but illusions of meaning, status, and identity. I mean, whatever meaning we hold about our own lives, whatever status we have achieved, and whatever identity we have built, it all feels insufficient, because there is always an image of what should be. At this point, simulation begins to take over reality. Needs are engineered. The distinction between the real and the fake slowly disappears. This phenomenon is what philosopher Jean Baudrillard called simulacra. Simulacra is a concept pointing to a condition where images, symbols, and representations no longer refer to reality, but instead replace it. Initially, we created images to represent reality, but over time, those images took on a life of their own, detached from anything real. At a certain stage, signs and images no longer imitate reality. Ironically, the image becomes the reality itself. Simulacra transforms reality into hyperreality. Suddenly, these images form their own world that feels more real than reality itself. This is the condition where the boundary between the original and the copy becomes truly blurred. We can no longer distinguish which is authentic and which is merely a construction. In fact, we no longer care. What matters is the impression produced, because the symbol feels more tangible than the reality it hides. As Baudrillard said, we are now more familiar with the image of the world than with the world itself. Media, advertising, and pop culture produces images that stick in our minds more than direct experience. To explain this, he cites Borges' story about a map made so detailed that its size was exactly the same as the territory it mapped. Gradually, people relied more on the map than the original territory. When the territory was finally destroyed, only the map remained. This is a metaphor for how representation can displace, even replace, reality. The map precedes the territory. The map engenders the territory. And if that fable were revived today, it is the territory that slowly rots under the map that looks real. It is not the map that is ruined, but reality that remains as fragments in the desert of the real itself. A more concrete example is Disneyland. We consider Disneyland a fantasy world, a space of fake distinct from the real world outside. But according to Baudrillard, it is precisely the opposite. Disneyland exists to make us believe that the world outside is real, whereas the outside world, Los Angeles, modern America, daily life, is equally filled with fakery, ads, images, social posturing, and curated lifestyles. Disneyland functions as a curtain. It gives the illusion that what lies outside Disneyland is authentic and truly real. Yet, the outside world itself operates on the same logic, a fantasy stage. A closer and more relevant example for us is social media. There, we rarely present ourselves as we are, but rather the best, controlled, and curated version of ourselves. We photograph our food, clothes, vacations, and bodies from the most ideal angles. We choose 2 photos out of 20 just to contribute to this world of falsehood. We write captions loaded with meaning, yet often edited multiple times to sound smart, motivational, or emotional. At this point, we are no longer just sharing life. but creating a version of life for others to see. What is interesting, yet odd, is that slowly, the version on social media feels more real than our own lives. The same happens in advertising in the world of consumption. We buy products not merely for their function, but for the meaning attached to them. We buy shoes not because we lack footwear, but because a brand represents a certain lifestyle, taste, and social status. We choose coffee not just for the taste, but for the narrative behind it: locality, ethics, urbanity, or intimacy. In this hyper-real world, what we consume is no longer the item, but the story wrapping the item. Baudrillard arrived at this idea because he lived in a Western society experiencing a massive surge in the production of culture, advertising, television, and markets. He saw that the modern economic system no longer focuses on the production of needs, but on the production of desires. Reality is no longer consumed directly, but through layers of signs and symbols. This led him to the conclusion that the modern world is not only filled with things, but also with signs about things. Why is this important in our discussion of emptiness? Because when life is lived in a hyper-real world, we keep chasing something that never truly exists. We desire an ideal version of ourselves that is fundamentally unachievable, because it is merely a simulation of a simulation. The emptiness we feel no longer comes from failing to reach a goal, but from the fact that the goal itself is false. We are shaped to desire something impossible to possess, because it only lives in a world of signs that were never truly real. Someone sees the perfect body of an influencer, then undergoes a strict diet, exercises hard, buys expensive supplements, whereas that ideal body standard itself is a simulation, the result of editing, lighting, filters. Even some of them alter their physique directly through drugs and surgery. So what is being chased is not a real body, but a simulation of a body. Another example, we chase the luxury lifestyle of ads. Coffee with a certain ambience, trips to Instagrammable places, branded clothes. Whereas what makes it all seem valuable is the narrative and image attached to it, not the real need. Even in education and careers, many people want to look successful according to LinkedIn standards or corporate ads, titles, certifications, and achievements. Yet those standards themselves are social constructions wrapped in layers of image upon image, and very rarely truly touch reality. What Baudrillard saw as a hyper-real world, a world full of images, symbols, and copies, not only changes how we relate to the outside world, but also changes how we understand ourselves. We no longer ask who we are, but what we have and how we look. Identity shifts into something that can be displayed. In such a society, the impact is a shift in the human way of life, from an orientation of to be towards an orientation of to have. This is the main problem analyzed by Erich Fromm in his book To Have or To Be. Fromm invites us to review the roots of the modern human way of life. He proposes one fundamental question: do we live to be or to have? For Fromm, the answer to this question determines almost the entire direction of our lives, how we love, work, think, and even understand ourselves. In the to-be mode, one lives life based on authentic existence. Life is not about accumulating things and status, but about feeling, experiencing, creating, and growing. In this mode, we do not judge people by what they possess, but by who they are as persons. Happiness does not come from outside, but from meaningful relationships, meaningful work, and deep experiences. Conversely, in the to-have mode, life is understood as a process of accumulation and ownership. We feel safe when we possess money, objects, titles, degrees, even other people. Identity is built from the outside in. We start saying, I am what I have. When loss comes, loss of wealth, position, partner, what is lost is not just the object, but also our sense of self. Fromm realized that modern society encourages humans to live in the to-have mode. Since childhood, we are taught that self-worth depends on what we can display or offer. For Fromm, the existential question is not about having much or little, but about choosing between having or being. Modern society oriented towards having is an acquisitive society where economic interests dominate, and the mode of existence is ownership. Conversely, the mode of being is rooted in love, the joy of sharing, productive activity, and the capacity to feel wonder, to give, and to live authentically. The more we live in the to-have mode, the more we lose connection with ourselves and with others. Why is that? Because the orientation of having makes us view everything, including ourselves, as objects that must be controlled, guarded, and owned. The self is no longer experienced directly, but shaped to be worthy of being seen and recognized. We build images and personas, but rarely touch the inner depth. In this mode, human relationships are also reduced. Others are no longer treated as unique subjects with their depth and wholeness, but as something we can own or utilize. We do not love to share existence, but to feel ownership. Fromm asserts that the to-have mode operates on the basis of fear. Fear of losing, fear of not being enough, and fear of not being recognized. That is why we constantly try to secure and expand what we have. We are busy guarding possessions, busy building an image, busy appearing successful, but inside, we are losing clarity about who we really are. This is where Fromm's thoughts meet our previous discussion. Simulacra forces us to live in a world of symbols and representations. It pushes us into the to-have mode. If we continue living in the to-have mode, sooner or later we will face the bitter reality that everything that can be possessed can eventually vanish. When life is entirely structured upon what we have, wealth, status, relationships, even meaning, then the loss of just one thing is enough to shake our sense of self to its core. This is what Fromm saw as the root of modern human emptiness. This emptiness arises because our understanding of life has been skewed from the start. We place our self-worth on something fragile and external. Consequently, when those things no longer satisfy, or worse, when they all collapse, we feel hollow. We start asking, who are we without everything we own? What is left when all symbols of success are stripped away? We feel ill-equipped to answer such questions. We are not used to being present with ourselves, without the frills of status, imaging, or recognition. We don't know what it feels like to simply exist without having to appear important, busy, or needed. In this context, Fromm is not just criticizing a lifestyle or consumer culture. He is showing that the crisis of modern man is an existential crisis. We lose connection with others because relationships are replaced by transactions. We lose connection with nature because the world is reduced to mere resources to be exploited. We lose connection with life, even with ourselves, because identity is now built on how much we possess, not on authentic experience. We live in a crowd, but feel alone. We have many things, but still feel empty. Of course, not everything we own is a form of greed or posturing. We live in the real world. We need shelter, food, clothing, access to technology, and occasional entertainment. We cannot simply reject everything and pretend to live like hermits. Fromm never demanded that. His criticism is not directed at the objects themselves, but at how we hang the value of our lives upon them. The problem is not that we have things, but when we make possession the sole foundation of value and identity. Fromm wants to remind us that there is another side of life often neglected, the side of experiencing, being, and relating. We can buy clothes, but are we also growing in the courage to show up as we are? We can travel to beautiful places, but are we truly present in that moment, not just hunting it for validation? We can love someone, but is that love born from openness and depth? Or is it just an invisible contract between two people who want to own each other? Living in the to-be mode does not mean rejecting the world, but living it with full awareness. However, if we stop at the previous explanations, we might be tempted to conclude that this emptiness is solely caused by external factors. Yet if we trace it further, this emptiness is actually embedded within us. Long before we were besieged by simulation and pushed to own, there was something in the deepest structure of the human subject that was never whole to begin with. This is what Jacques Lacan explained. He asserted that emptiness is an inseparable part of human existence. Furthermore, Lacan argued that this emptiness is essential. As he stated, desire is a relation between being and lack. This emptiness is the emptiness of existence itself, not an emptiness of a specific thing, but an emptiness that allows existence to be. When we were infants, before we could speak, we lived in a world where all needs were met just like that. The need for food, warmth, and embrace was present without distance. At this stage, we and the mother did not yet feel like two separate entities. Everything was merged, and we did not yet know the concept of me and you. Over time, we began to realize that we are not one with the mother. We are different from her. We began to realize a distance between us and the outside world. This distance made us understand that the fulfillment of needs, which previously appeared automatically, now depends on something outside ourselves. From here we realized that not all desires would be immediately met. There came a pause, a small frustration, which became our entryway to recognizing reality. This is where, for the first time, we truly felt loss. But what was lost? Not an object, not a person physically. What was lost was the sense of unity itself, the sense of wholeness that we can never return to. Since then, our entire self-structure has been formed upon the longing to return to that state. Lacan calls this condition the birth of the split subject. Called split because the subject is never whole. There is always something empty and missing within. This longing for unity is the origin of desire. Since then, desire works to chase something believed to be able to close that gap. But strangely, the object we chase is not something that can truly satisfy us. Lacan calls it object pétier, a kind of shadow of what was lost, or what we imagine can fill that void. We feel we will be whole again if we possess a certain love, a certain object, certain recognition, or certain status. But every time we get it, that satisfaction is only temporary. This experience of loss does not stand alone. It occurs simultaneously with our entry into language. Before we could speak, the world felt fluid, limitless, without separation between I and the other. But when we started learning words, we pointed to ourselves and said I, we pointed to others and said you, he, or they. That is where the distance was truly formed. Language gives us the ability to name and give meaning, but at the same time makes us no longer experience the world directly. We start experiencing the world through symbols. Lacan calls this moment our entry into the symbolic order, a world governed by language, norms, and laws. At this point, what we want can no longer be reached directly. We cannot simply cry and be immediately hugged or fed. We have to ask, wait, adjust. What used to be present spontaneously can now only be approached through language. And tragically, according to Lacan, language itself always misses the mark. Language is never truly capable of capturing or satisfying our deepest desires. It is precisely from the limitations of language that desire emerges. Every time we name something, there is always another part that feels missing. To understand how language always misses the mark, try to imagine this situation. For example, we lose someone we love deeply, whether due to separation or death. Then a tightness appears in the chest, as if the world has collapsed, and life suddenly feels unworthy of living. Then a friend comes and asks how we are. We answer, "I'm sad." Often, that is all that can be uttered. Yet the reality is far more complicated than just the word sad. It feels like I'm losing direction, as if the body and the world are no longer connected, but we are unable to explain it. Then we try again. I'm confused. I feel empty. I don't know what to do. But all those sentences still fail. That is how language works. It only gives us tools to name and point, but can never bring us directly to the experience itself. Words only represent feelings, and that representation is never fully equal to what it represents. Lacan says that desire is born from this gap, because we can never truly say or obtain what we really want. Therefore, we keep chasing. We want something, but never really know what. Even when we have it, often we feel as if this isn't what we were truly looking for. We are disappointed, then move on to another desire. We keep chasing new satisfying objects, whereas what we are actually looking for is the feeling of oneness we once experienced before language, before separation, before we became a split subject. Furthermore, desire is not only related to our personal wants. Desire is always connected to the desire of others. This means we tend to want what others want.
Desire, says Lacan, always involves the desire of the other, which basically means we are constantly asking the other what they want. Desire is not a pure wish born entirely from within us. We don't just want to be happy. We want happiness that is recognized as happiness, according to the standards and norms of others. We don't just want to be beautiful, successful, smart, or loved. We want to look that way in the eyes of others. Even when we feel we want something, often it is because we imagine how that desire will be viewed by others. We are beings who desire through, and because of the desire of others. That is why our desire is never stable. We chase a shadow that keeps changing, because what others want also always changes. Moreover, we never truly know what the other actually wants. We could see this picture through a simple illustration. For example, we hear a friend or influencer share a vacation experience in a certain place, like an aesthetic cafe, or a very Instagrammable mountain village. Unconsciously, we start getting interested and want to go there too. Initially, we might think it is purely our desire to relax or enjoy the view, but slowly we realize that what we want is actually to be seen enjoying the same vacation as everyone else. Because for many people, it looks cool, classy, or aspirational. Another example, a certain shoe or clothing item suddenly becomes viral. Many people start buying it, but they buy it not because of its quality or comfort, but because they see others doing it too, especially if the item is worn by a figure considered influential. Our relationship with the product is no longer just a consumer-to-good relationship, but a relationship between ourselves and the image we want to display to society as someone with current taste. So what we buy is not just an item, but a narrative about who we should be in the eyes of others. From Lacan's thought, we finally realize that the emptiness we feel is something missing, yet can never truly be named. Lacan calls this emptiness a condition of existence itself. We are not beings who lack because something was taken from us,
but because from the beginning, we were indeed formed by that lack. Humans are beings who keep chasing something that can never be fully possessed, in the gap between what we feel and what we are capable of saying, in the abyss between desire and reality. That is where desire is born and keeps working endlessly. This is why biological psychological explanations like dopamine, sociological analyses like Simulacra, and existential readings like to have versus to be are interconnected in explaining the root of modern human emptiness. Dopamine keeps us running, Simulacra forms false goals, and the to have mode traps us in the illusion that self-worth can be built through ownership. But the most fundamental of all is the reality that emptiness is not the result of something wrong, but an inseparable part of our subjectivity structure. In other words, even if the world stopped demanding things from us, even if we no longer chased anything, that emptiness would still exist, because it is the shadow that always accompanies every form of existence. But then, the question arises, what does all of this mean for us if emptiness truly cannot be eliminated, if desire never truly ends, and if wholeness is merely an illusion? Then how should we live with such awareness? Will we drown in despair? Or can we find a way of living that is more honest and more resilient against the fragility of existence? What can we do? Once we realize that emptiness is part of who we are never a whole and complete subject. We are always in a position of not yet, of lacking, of desiring. Lacan calls this condition lack, a structural deficiency that becomes the very basis for the birth of desire. We exist because there is something missing. Ironically, because this lack cannot be erased, we keep creating images, goals, and achievements that we think can close that void. We build an ego out of what we have, out of what is visible, out of how others view us. This is where many people get trapped. They think the only way out of emptiness is to keep adding things from the outside, yet that method never truly touches the core of the problem. Structural emptiness will never be filled by anything external. From here, another path becomes possible, and this is where we meet what Keiji Nishitani calls active emptiness. Instead of fighting the void or constantly avoiding it, we enter into it, acknowledging it as part of ourselves. We stop building ourselves from external materials and start cultivating an inner awareness that we don't have to chase wholeness to feel we exist. True emptiness emerges when we awaken to emptiness itself as emptiness. It is not merely a nothingness that negates existence, but a field where existence reveals itself fully and authentically. In realizing emptiness, we are liberated into a space where we can truly be present. Emptiness is a sense of loss, transforms into emptiness as a new way to be present. A presence no longer burdened by imaging, a presence that becomes free because it is no longer chased by the shadow of expectations. This can happen because we have understood that the effort to fill the void is a futile endeavor, not only because those external things are fragile, but because emptiness itself is an inseparable part of who we are. So why don't we just live with it? In daily life, the form can be very simple. For example, someone chooses to step back from the social race, to live a life more aligned with their own values. They might stop chasing a certain position, no longer obsess over rising lifestyle trends, or choose a job that is financially modest, but gives them time for family, art, or the solitude they need. From the outside, their life might look ordinary, but from the inside, they experience deep relief because they no longer live for the expectations of others. But of course, not everyone is capable of sitting long with emptiness. Many of us try to escape that hollow feeling in various ways. We make ourselves excessively busy, hoard experiences, buy more, work endlessly, or even drown ourselves in addiction. Emptiness then becomes the entryway for a destructive cycle. We start hanging our sense of self on external things, social validation, performance, achievements, or unhealthy relationships. Philosophically, this attitude can develop into a form of latent pessimism. If desire is never finished, if existence always stands on lack, then why try? At this point, emptiness is viewed as a curse. Humans become beings who are constantly thirsty, but every time they drink, that thirst is never truly quenched. In fact, they become even thirstier. This awareness can make us feel weary and view life with a rather somber tone, because it could be that whatever we desire and possess is never truly capable of calming us. We try, we love, we work, we chase recognition, but there is always an empty space left behind, as if life isn't designed to make us feel satisfied, but to keep us in a constant spin. However, the reality is not that simple, because in practice, we live life between these two poles every day. It is difficult for us to imagine that the only life choice is between accepting emptiness calmly or rejecting it with pessimism. There are times when we can make peace, but there are also times when we become restless again. There are moments when simple things make us feel whole. Then the next day, we are ensnared again by the desire to be recognized, loved, and justified. Emptiness can never truly be positioned as an enemy or friend. It is always present as something confusing, because on one hand it is painful, but on the other it opens, exhausting, yet simultaneously purifying. We know that nothing in this world can satisfy us completely, but we still want to try. We are aware that all achievements will pass, yet we still strive to reach them. This is not a contradiction to be solved, but a paradox to be lived. Emptiness does not demand to be resolved, but to be understood. What is clear is that the feeling of never being satisfied will always exist within us. From this point emerges a way of life that does not solely chase fullness, but departs from the courage to remain alive, despite being incomplete. This way of life does not forbid us from having desires, does not ask us to be apathetic, and does not tell us to withdraw from the world, but it demands one important thing: honesty. The honesty not to deceive ourselves with the belief that one item, one relationship, or one achievement will finally make us whole. We are allowed to desire, but we also need to know that the desire will not save us. We are allowed to love, but do not hope that love will close all wounds. We are allowed to dream, but do not forget that dreams sometimes make us forget the ground we stand on. The emptiness we experience is not a coincidence, and not a sign of personal weakness. It is born from the blend of our brain's biological workings, cultural pressures that shape desire and imaging, and the deepest structure of human subjectivity itself. We chase something that can never be fully grasped, because from the start, we were indeed formed by lack. On one hand, we live in a world that constantly offers satisfaction, but on the other, our soul always holds a space that cannot be filled by anything. Realizing this might make us feel small, even helpless, but precisely from this kind of admission emerges the space to understand that life is not about becoming complete, but about learning to be present within that incompleteness itself. So what is left? When all illusions of fullness crumble, there is no certain answer. Perhaps we are indeed destined to keep searching, not to truly find. Perhaps all our efforts to be better and to feel satisfied will never be fully finished. But does that mean it is futile? Does something that is never finished always mean it is meaningless?